Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Lessons from the Front. My name is Todd Boeding, and I am absolutely honored. I am humbled to be sitting here with, it humbles me to say fellow Marine, let alone such an icon, an American hero like Woody Williams. Woody, thank you for gracing us. Welcome to Lessons from the Front.
Well, thank you very much, and Semper Fi.
Semper Fi to you, sir. So for people who aren't familiar with what we're doing, Lessons from the Front, I think I kind of, I lost something there. So please bear with me one second. Lessons from the Front was designed with folks like you in mind. And the intention behind this was people need to hear the stories, not just the stories about, that they're going to read in history books, but the stories directly from the folks that have made it through some unbelievable challenges in life, who've made it through not just battles like we know you've made it through, but also the ins and outs of everyday life in the military, because there's some unbelievable stories. And from those stories, tremendous lessons in life.
Yes.
So can you help us set the framework a little bit? Who is Woody Williams before the military?
Well, he was a country boy, born in West Virginia, and grew up on a dairy farm. That was our means of living. My father started the dairy farm when I was just a wee toddler, and we delivered milk and groceries and produce to people in town. We called it in town, which was the city nearest to us. We were 7.5 miles out of the city, and every morning we would load first a Model T Ford pickup, and then we got a little more prosperous, and my dad was able to get a used Model A Ford because it had a little more power, so it would carry a little more weight. And we would leave every morning very early and take produce and milk and cream and whatever to the people in town, and we had a regular route that we would deliver the milk and produce to. And when we were not in school during the summer months, after school was out, then we, the younger boys, would stand on the running board. We don't have running boards much anymore, but we would stand on the running board of the pickup truck when we got to town, one on each side, and we would run with the produce or the quart of milk or the pint of cream, whatever the folk were getting, set it on their porch, grab the empties that we'd left there the day before, and come back to the truck and go on to the next house. So we would do that all morning until we completed our route. We had no electricity in the farm or at the farm, so we had to have ice in order to keep the milk cool. And we would go to a ice house on the way home every morning and pick up 100-pound block of ice. And
every morning?
Every morning. We'd take that home with us and put it in the ice box, because when the milk went into the ice box, and there were several quarts and bottles of milk that went in there all at the same time, we were milking about 35 head of cows every morning and every evening. So that milk was still warm, and consequently it would melt the ice rather rapidly. But we had an ice box, we'd put it in there, and it would keep the milk cool until the next morning. We'd take it out, load it in the pickup, and deliver it that day. So yes, today's milk is delivered tomorrow morning.
Okay. And so how early did your day start?
Well, it's about 4 o'clock in the morning. As the boys grew up, there were 11 of us in the family.
11 children.
Yes. I was the last to get here.
Okay.
They really didn't expect me to survive. I only weighed 3 pounds. And in those days, 3 pound babies normally did not survive because we had no incubators or methods of taking care of them. And none of us ever had a doctor at birth. And so, fortunately, I survived. But
I'll say.
as the boys got up to around 5 or 6 years old, where they could be responsible, they would inherit the job of, during the summer months, of going out and getting the cows and putting them in the barn and getting them ready to be milked. And of course, as they got a little older, they would get assigned so many cows to milk every morning. And uh, usually one person would end up with 5 or 6 cows to milk.
So was it a competition to see who could milk more, or a competition to see who could get out of milking as many?
Yeah, I think the latter.
The latter. Okay, that makes sense. And so your day would start 4 o'clock. You and your brothers would start milking cows. I'm assuming you had some sisters. Were they were they allowed to milk the cows, or were they told to milk the cows? I mean, what was their job?
Say again, I'm sorry.
I'm sure you had some sisters. Were they there milking cows with you, or did they have another job?
They had another job, basically. Yes, it was the boys'
Okay.
job. It was a men's job to run the farm. The girls' job
Okay.
were to take care of the house cleaning, and the more feminine kinds of things.
Okay.
Oh, in the gardens, they would dig potatoes and plant beans and all the other stuff with us during the summer months to get our crops in. But we took care. The boys had to take care of mostly of the cows because some of them could be right rowdy.
Okay. And so that was kind of your childhood, was growing up and taking care of the farm and supporting the family. Everybody had their part. So well before you got into the Marine Corps, you understood the importance of everybody pulling their weight.
That is
And,
correct.
and so, okay. So talk to me about, I mean, you didn't go into the Marine Corps until after the start of World War II, if I remember correctly.
That's correct.
Tell
Uh,
me how the country, tell me how life was at the outbreak of World War II.
well, we in our community, uh, I have no idea as to the actual houses that could be included in this community, but probably 50 or 60. But it covered several miles. My
Hmm.
schoolhouse was a mile away, and we walked back and forth to school every day. But school was in session, didn't, and we didn't have any snow days either. Didn't make any difference whether it snowed or rained or whatever it was doing. You still went to school, that.
Right.
But but in the community, we had no newspaper, and most folks did not have a radio. We did not. I had one uncle that happened to work in a factory. He was working in a Owens, Illinois glass factory. So he
Hmm.
was making a little more money than the most of us, and he could afford a small radio. So if there's something coming on the radio that he thought might be of interest to.
Oh, it looks like we froze up. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if Woody Williams has frozen up here, then we're just going to have to be patient. There he is. There you are. Okay, you froze up for a minute. So your uncle worked at Illinois Owings, and you were starting to talk about the beginning of the war.
Yes, I at the age of 16, my brother next to me decided he wasn't particularly anxious to stay on the farm, so he joined what was known as the Civilian Conservation Corps. We called it the Three C's. And
Okay.
President Roosevelt had established those throughout the country, every state. to give the youth of that age group something to do, maybe some way of learning a trade. And in West Virginia, we had something like 29 camps of those young boys. My brother next to me, he joined when he was 16, much to the dislike of my mother, but he stayed in West Virginia, went to one of the West Virginia camps. So
Mhm.
I'm about a year and a half younger than he. So when I got to be 16, I decided I wanted to go to the CCCs also because he had some money. I didn't have any. And I thought, well, if I can go there, I can have money too. You know? And so I joined thinking I would stay in West Virginia, but I ended up in Montana.
In
And
Montana?
yeah, a place called Whitehall, Montana. And our job there, we had about 265 young boys in the camp from West Virginia, Ohio, Virginia, Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey. Didn't have any farther south, or we didn't have anybody from the west. But our job out there was to build fence around government property so that the
Okay.
ranchers and the sheep people wouldn't get into a fight. The sheep would stay in one area and the cattle in the other area. So we built miles of that, and that's where I was on December the 1st, 1941. They called us out on December 8th, lined everybody up in some sort of a formation. The camps were run by Army personnel. We had a
Okay.
commanding officer, we had a first sergeant, mess sergeant, and some clerks, Army clerks. And we were supervised when we went off of the camp area by civilians, professional people who knew how to train us in jobs. And they called us out, told us that America was going to war. Of course, none of us had ever heard of Pearl Harbor, and most of us didn't have any idea what was going on in the world. But they offered the opportunity to those that were over 18 years old.
Oh, Woody, you cut out on us. We can't hear you. So
Did we disappear?
Woody, yep, there we go. Okay, so you said those of you over 18 were given the opportunity to sign up, but you didn't know, you never heard of Pearl Harbor, you didn't know what was going on in the world.
That's right.
My assumption would be that you didn't even know that Japan was an adversary at that point. Is that correct?
I'd never heard tell of them. I wasn't even
Is
sure.
that right?
I didn't even know we had a South Pacific Ocean. That's how smart I was. But those that were under 18, I hadn't reached my 18th birthday yet. We had to go home because we had to have parent consent before we could go into the military. So I
Okay.
got 18 years old, and I got on a train and came back to West Virginia. And shortly after I got home, I reached my 18th birthday in October, and I wanted my mom to sign so I could go in before that, but she wouldn't do it. So a month after my 18th birthday, I went in.
So what do you said? You said a month after your 18th birthday, you were able to go in because your mother would not sign up. You
Yeah,
can't hear me now. Okay,
yeah,
there you are.
yeah. I went
Okay.
to sign up to go, not to fight a war. I didn't know anything about that. I
Okay.
really went to sign up to protect my country and my freedom because we were
Okay.
that this group of people that we'd never heard tell of were trying to take over our country. And if they
I
did,
see.
we would live a different life. We would have to live a life that they wanted us to rather than the American way. So I wanted to enlist to protect my country and my freedom. And I'm 18, but the Marine Corps had a height requirement, 5'8" or better, or you could not get in the Marine Corps.
Okay.
So I tried when I filled out the
And
paper.
and that begs the question, Woody, how tall are you?
5'6".
Okay. Okay. Well, you carry yourself tall, so I could ask that question. And so what did you do then?
He
If
turned me
there's a
down.
height requirement for 5'8", they turned you down.
Turned
Okay.
me down. And that was in November 1942.
Okay.
And in early 1943, the Marine Corps reduced the height requirement to where they would take people less than 5'8". So I went back and joined. I still wanted to go.
They said, welcome in. Come on.
That's right. But I really didn't think I would ever leave the United States. I thought I would stay right here in the country and protect it. And I thought everybody else was going to do the same thing.
Well, what you said, something you said really resonated with me, and that was you never thought you were going to war. You were signing up to defend your country. And what that tells me is that there were those were two very different ideas. Going to war and defending your country were not one and the same. At least not in the minds of civilization, within America. So that had to have been when you got to combat, and I want to hold off on going too deep there yet. But when you got to combat, then that had to have been an eye-opening affair when you're thinking, hey, I just thought I was going to deflect a couple of punches. Now all of a sudden you're being instructed, you got to go in, and as we know, war is hell. It's death and destruction. And so that had to have been a very eye-opening experience.
It was. I never dreamed. In fact, I was taught growing up that you don't take life and you don't kill anything unless it is for food, or it's in dire straits and can't survive, or you need it to eat. And that was the only
Hmm.
reason that you could take a life of any kind. And so when we got into combat and we had to
Okay, Woody, we lost you again, but I know you're going to come back because if we keep talking, we seem to talk over the waves. And
even
uh,
worse,
there
watching.
you go. Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay. Unfortunately, you cut out there again on me. Hopefully, everybody else is hearing what you're saying, and it's just me that can't hear you. So, why? First of all, why the Marine Corps? Can you?
Well,
I mean,
I had
you said you
brothers.
had a.
Yeah, I had two brothers
Okay.
that just in early 1941, both of them were of draft age and they were drafted.
Okay.
So when you were drafted, you went Army,
Hmm.
period. And both of them ended up in the Army. One of them ended up with Patton's outfit.
Ah.
Yeah. And the other one was very fortunate in that he got assigned to a rear echelon supply group, and he never did have the opportunity or the job of seeing combat. He was a
Okay.
person. But uh, I lost my thought.
Well, I asked you why the Marine Corps.
Oh, yes, why the Marine Corps? Well, I did not like that Army uniform. It was a brown woolen Army uniform, and it wouldn't hold a crease if a steamroller rolled over it, and it was just I just didn't like it, and I wanted to be in the Marine Corps to be able to wear the dress blues because we had a couple fellows during the Depression years in the mid 30s that joined the Marine Corps from our community. They were no relation to me, but every year, one time a year, they would let them come home for 30 days. They called it a 30-day furlough. And the Marine Corps required them to wear their dress blues all the time they were home. And I've said this many times, and it's factual. They could really get the girl.
So, in other words, when you are home on leave, we need you to be a recruiting poster walking around.
You got it. That's exactly what it was. Yeah,
Absolutely. Oh my God. So you were just like a lot of young men, you were enamored by the uniform and what that could bring in.
absolutely.
Okay. Did you were you honest with your wife about that? And did you tell her why you went in the Marine Corps?
Well, of course, I was not married, of course, when I went into the Marine Corps. I was engaged, um, but no, I don't think I ever told her that's why I selected the Marine Corps. But she was very proud of the fact that I did.
Well, and I can tell you, as a fellow Marine, we're all very proud of the fact that you did. So obviously you saw a lot, and for anyone who has not had an opportunity to really research your story or research the Battle of Iwo Jima, which is where you have received a lot of recognition, I encourage them to do that. But I want to open it up to you for the opportunity to go outside of that if you want. Lessons from the Front is about, we want to hear about maybe a specific story that happened during your time in service. Maybe it was on the battlefield, maybe it wasn't. But you still carry the memory of that story with you today because it left such a lasting impression on you.
Mhm.
And out of that, you also have the ability to recount a story that others can learn from. Is there anything that comes to mind when I throw that out?
Well, I attempt and will always attempt, and I hope I do, give others credit for much of what happened to me. I was trained by other Marines to do a specific job, and had they not trained me, I I wouldn't have survived. It was their training that really got me through. And on February the 23rd, 1945, it just so happened the same day that the flag went up on Mount Suribachi, and nobody had anything to do with either what I did or what they did, but it happened on the same day. And we had been in the attack uh, for 3 or 4 days, and the enemy had all the advantage in that they were either in caves or pillboxes. We call them bunkers today, but in my day we called them pillboxes, and they were reinforced concrete. They had bars through them, and so they were very difficult to destroy if you could do it at all. But when we would get up to move forward, they had all the advantage because they had an open field in which they could fire at us. All we had
Hmm.
was a little aperture in the front of the pillbox, which was about 8 inches tall and across the front of the pillbox. That was had to be our target. And all we could see basically are the rifles or the machine guns sticking out that aperture firing at us. You couldn't even actually see the people inside because you're dealing with an 8 inch aperture. And
Hmm.
so we had lost so many of our Marines in an attempt to break through a line of these pillboxes that they had built to protect the airfield, first airfield. And my commanding officer had lost all of his officers, wounded or killed, except two and himself. Our squad leaders were gone. Our gunnery sergeants were gone. Our platoon sergeants were gone. We were just Marines, period, and lost all form of formation. And so he withdrew from an attack and called for a meeting of NCOs that he had remaining. I was a corporal, acting sergeant, and I was not considered an NCO. So, but my first sergeant told me that he wanted me at that meeting. I was a flamethrower demolition operator, but I was assigned to headquarters company to take care of 6 Marines that were in my little special weapons unit, flamethrower demolition people. I was in headquarters to keep them supplied and make sure they had what they needed at any time that they needed it. And those 6 men, those 6 Marines were gone. I never knew whether they were wounded or killed. They were just gone. And so I went to this meeting. We gathered in a great big shell crater. We got down.
So Woody, if you can hear me, we lost you for a minute, so I'm going to ask you to back up just a little bit.
Say again?
Okay, so there you are. Okay, so we lost you for just a minute. You said you gathered in a great big shell crater.
Yes. And he wanted to know if I might do something with a flamethrower against the pillboxes.
Okay.
I don't know my answer. Some of the fellows later said my response was, I'll try. So he gave me 4 Marines to assist me. 2 of them were from my squad that we'd been in previous to being in the special unit. And the other 2 were just Marines. I don't know where they came from, don't know what company they were with or anything. They were just Marines. So I selected those 4 individuals, and their job was to shoot at whatever pillbox I'm going to try to get flame into. They're to shoot at that aperture to try to keep the Japanese from being able to shoot at me. Those were my instructions to them. And so we went forward, crawling most of the way until we got to the first pillbox, and we were able to get flame in, eliminate the enemy. And in about 4 hours, it was a period of 4 hours. I used 6 flamethrowers. I eliminated the enemy within 7 pillboxes. I have no explanation how I did it. I have no memory of much of it. I attribute that basically to fear and why I remember. Wasn't at the moment, it wasn't important that I remember that. So
Interesting.
And as a result of that, he and 4 other Marines that were not involved in that operation at that moment recommended that I receive the Medal of Honor, of which I had never heard tell of, didn't even know existed. And even when I got it, I still didn't know what I had.
Okay, well, hold on. Hold that thought, because we're going to come back to that here in a minute. But I want to go back for the tactical enthusiasts within the audience. You mentioned something about that the CO calls everybody in, and he asked the question about, hey, we got, what I took away is that he's saying we got a problem we've got to figure out. And he basically turned to you and he said, Corporal Williams, do you think you can do this? Which tells me that the employment of that weapon system was not really utilized the way you did that day previously. Is that correct?
That is true. Yes, that is
so. So how was the flamethrower? Because any historic footage, of which I've probably seen you, I've always seen that type of employment of that weapon system. What was the flamethrower used for then prior to that battle?
Well, I got overseas in December of 1943. And at that point in time, up to then, we had no flamethrowers.
Okay.
The flamethrowers we got were in about sometime in January of 1944. None of us had ever seen one. We didn't know what it was.
Okay. Okay, what are you froze up on us again? I'm gonna. So while we're waiting for you to come back, you'd never even seen, you said you'd never even seen a flamethrower prior to 1944. So what did you go in the Marine Corps to do? Not to chase too many rabbits down the holes here.
Well, as you well know, being a Marine, you are first trained as a rifleman. Everybody
Right.
in the Corps is a rifleman. So that was my job. I was a rifleman,
Okay.
period.
Okay. So you were a rifleman, and then February of 44 comes around. And where were you at that time?
I was on the island of Guadalcanal.
You were on Guadalcanal. Uh, that was another tough one. So you're on Guadalcanal in early 44, and then all of a sudden they bring in a flamethrower. Is that when you started? Is that when you picked up a flamethrower for the first time? They said, "Here, give it to this 5'6" guy. He looks like he can handle this."
Well, we got a good number of them. Really, they came in great big wooden crates, and so we had a number of them in the company, and they had to establish this special unit, and they put a gunnery sergeant in charge of it. Uh,
Mhm.
I was a I was the team leader, but he was the gunnery sergeant, and he told us what to do and when to do it. And we looked at the manual and mixed up the fuel that we were supposed to, the way they,
You did this by a manual.
huh?
You did this by manual. There was no special training. A crate shows up. It's got some tanks. It's got some gas. It's got a manual that, no doubt, for us Marines is grunt proof. So it has pictures, and it basically says take this gas and mix them together. Is that correct? Am I hearing that right?
Basically, yes. It had with each flamethrower at that time, it had a cellophane bag of uh, phosphorus uh, powder. It had it was a powder that had phosphorus in it, and you mixed it with gasoline, and it turned into a gel and became very sticky. And
Hmm.
of course, with the phosphorus in it, if it got on your body and you tried to brush it off, all you did was make
All you did was make it worse, and it burned. Is that correct?
of uh, fluid like a water hose. And you couldn't aim the thing because you're firing from the waist, and you only had 72 seconds of air in an air tank to force the propellant, the fuel, out of the flamethrower. If you opened it up and let it go, it would run for 72 seconds and then you're out of air. Well, the flamethrower is useless without air. So he didn't like that one stream of stuff. So he began experimenting with gasoline and other mixtures like kerosene and motor oil and diesel fuel and whatever. And back at that time, gasoline was about 82 octane, which is not real hot. And
Hmm.
he decided maybe airplane gasoline would work better. And one day he came in with a 55-gallon drum of airplane gasoline. Nobody ever asked him where he got it or how he got it, but he had it. So we began using that. And after we used it, it proved so effective that we could requisition it. And then we would get airplane gasoline to mix with our diesel fuel, and that's what we made up as a fuel.
So you cut out a little bit when you were talking about he. I'm assuming this was your gunnery sergeant.
Yes,
And for people who are not real familiar with the Marine Corps, you have to understand that a gunnery sergeant in the Marine Corps is one of the most resourceful people on the planet. And I
absolutely.
remember having a gunnery sergeant, and we needed something, and I'll just leave it at that. And I said, Gunny, I don't know. I mean, if we had this, but I don't have any. Sir, hold on one second. Let me see if I can rouse something up. Within a couple hours, he comes back with everything we need. And I looked at him and I said, Gunny, how in the world, sir? Don't ask questions. We we're taught how to procure, not steal, not anything like that. We're taught how to procure. And that story has always stayed with me because of the resourcefulness of a gunnery sergeant. So that is a fantastic explanation.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show you that from one generation to the next, I mean, the Marine Corps is so good at learning that side of things. So, all right. So I want to get back to Iwo Jima then. So you made a statement that really stuck with me a minute ago, and you said you don't really remember it. You're not sure what it was, if it was fear or what, but all of a sudden the mission's accomplished, lives are saved, you've been able to gain ground, and the only thing you could attribute it to was fear. Fear allowed you to do that, but you don't even remember it. And then the next thing you know, people are recommending you for this beautiful blue ribbon that's hanging around your neck and that you wear so eloquently. And I mean, that's just an unbelievable story that it was fear that motivated you.
And I have said many times, and anyone who has been in combat, I'm sure, has witnessed this, that everybody has fear. Absolutely, controlling it is the masterpiece. If fear controls you, then you cannot operate under fear. There is no way in the world. And if fear absolutely takes over you to where it is in control, then you must be, and we evacuated many, many Marines because that happened. Fear
Hmm.
overcame courage, and they no longer could be part of combat. So even though you have fear, sometimes it can be a stimulus rather than something that retards you.
Hmm. So did you realize, I mean, did you walk off of Iwo Jima knowing I mean, when did it come to light that you could pass that lesson on to other people and say, don't let fear retard you? I mean, I think that's a great way to say it. Don't let it retard you. Use fear to your advantage. When did you really when were you able to sit back and reflect on that and understand that as a lesson to pass on to others?
Well, I think uh, even after Guam, I
Okay, Woody, we lost you again a little bit. Apologize for the technical difficulties there, but okay, there you are. You said so even after Guam, you think.
yes, I think I realized after my first combat experience that if fear absolutely takes over the person, then they're done. They can't operate.
Mhm.
And I think I realized that after my first combat.
Did you ever face fear again that that gripped you the way it did that day? I mean, whether it be, um, I don't know, at any point in your life, was there ever another point where you remembered the fear that day and said, "Okay, I need to harken back to that day and channel this same fear the same way." I mean, whether that be in your business life, in your personal life, do you ever remember facing a similar fear?
No, I don't think there is any fear. There's different kinds of fear as far as I'm concerned.
Hmm.
There's a fear of falling, and fear of danger and that sort of thing. I think they're two different factors. But I think after combat, being in combat, I think I did realize that you cannot, even in civil life, live under a fearful situation. It's got to be on a positive side rather than a negative side, and fear is negative. it takes away rather than adds to. So I've never been bothered with fear. Sometimes I was stupid because I wasn't afraid. I was in the horse training business for 35 years, and I'd get on the back of a horse that had never had anybody on its back before, and
Yeah, you weren't concerned about that, huh? That was that was a completely different kind of fear, and you'd face the ultimate fear, is what you're saying. Yep. All of a sudden, we've
right, I got you.
there you go. So you were saying that the fear of falling off a horse was absolutely nothing. It wasn't even fearful.
Well, it was a kind of a fear, but if I'd let it take a hold of me and control me, then I wouldn't have got back on that horse.
Yeah.
No,
No, and I think I think that's a great takeaway, is that fear is real, and there's all kinds of fears, and whether it's fear of your life, or fear of getting hurt, or fear of the unknown, fear of the dark, you have to own that fear, and you have to confront it. So that is a great takeaway, and thank you very much. I want to, in kind of the final segment here, I want to shift gears to your foundation.
yes.
So, for those who are not familiar with it, it's called the Hershel Woody Williams Medal of Honor Foundation, and it ties so closely to Carry the Load. I can't tell you how humbled we are that you are a partner of ours. Can you tell
Well,
everybody about your foundation?
you guys are making history. I'm telling you, it's amazing what you're doing.
Wow. To hear you say that, I can't tell you how it makes us feel. But again, it's partners like y'all that just, I mean, y'all are the ones doing the actual work. Our job is to raise awareness, and get you guys in front of people. So, I mean, tell us what the Medal of Honor Foundation does. I mean, why is it so important?
Well, in all the wars that we have had, and we've had many, too many, but in all the wars that we've had, we have recognized the veterans who fought the war and those who sacrificed their lives in war. We have recognized them pretty well in America. I think we've done a pretty good job of honoring the veterans who have kept us a free people. But the one group of people that we seem to overlook and forgot, and I don't think there's any cause for it or any blame going around for it, we failed to recognize the sacrifice that the families made because
Mm.
there's a vacant place at the table. There's nobody home anymore. There's nobody coming in and saying, "Hey, mom, that person is no longer of that individual who sacrificed his life for all of us." And in 2013, in the little state of West Virginia, because, and what brought it up was we've got over 11,000 of our West Virginians on a Veterans Memorial on our Capitol grounds, and every one of those gave their life in the military. But we had never done anything to recognize the families, the mothers and the fathers and the aunts and the uncles and the grandmas and grandpas, brothers and sisters and cousins. We'd never even mentioned.
Right. Yeah. And Woody, for people who have never seen the monuments, they are beautiful. I
Talking to
remember.
friends who lost a loved one, in all those 33 years, nobody ever mentioned to me Gold Star Dad
Mm.
or Gold Star Brother.
I remember you telling a story about Gold Star Dad, and you were representing the Army still, or excuse me, the Marine Corps still, when you got out and someone heard you speak, and it was a father who had lost his son in battle.
That
Am I remembering that correctly?
yes, sir. He lost his son in Afghanistan.
Okay. Would you mind sharing that story with us?
Yes, I actually was speaking to a group of senior citizens. I'd been invited to speak to this group of senior citizens, as, and they assigned the topic to me of what is our responsibility as an American to our
Hmm.
country. That was a tough subject, but I was talking about what we as citizens need to do. We can't, we're past fighting the war.
Hmm.
We as civilians, when we get older, we can't fight wars. So I was talking about our responsibility to community, to state, to locations, to each other, and that type thing. And and there were a lot of gray-haired ladies in there because we're senior citizens. I was one of them, and so I asked if we had any Gold Star mothers in the group, and there were a number of them in the group. So we certainly showed our appreciation for their sacrifice of a loved one. And then after it was over, everybody left the hall except one man, and he was sitting with his head down, and I thought maybe something was wrong with him. So I asked him if I could be of any help to him, and he didn't say anything. He just, in a few minutes or a few seconds, got up and came walking up toward me, and tears were rolling down his cheeks. And the only thing he said to me was, "Dads cry too."
Mm.
I had never in all my time, with all the occasions that I'd had, I had never mentioned Gold Star Dad. Now, I had talked about Gold Star mothers, but that hit me like a ton of brick. That I asked him if he would share his story, and he agreed to do that. His wife, the mother of the boy, died just shortly before he was going into the army. In fact, he already had his reporting date for Fort Leonard Wood when his mother succumbed, and he could have got out of it, but he said, "No, I still want to serve." So he went, ended up in Afghanistan, and there sacrificed his life. So that told me that families of those, not just the immediate family of an individual, and that's what the military deals with, but those who are related to that individual also grieve,
Yes.
suffer grief, and miss.
So, Woody, we lost you there a little bit on the tail end of that. Um, the what you're saying is extremely powerful. It's extremely powerful because Gold Star families. It We're actually speaking with a Gold Star mother on Mother's Day. Her name is Debbie Lee. Her son Mark Lee, Navy SEAL, um, passed away in the latest conflict. Um, and I've spent a Mother's Day with her before, so this will be a reunion of sorts for us. She's very gracious. She is very forthcoming. But what a lot of people don't realize, I think, is that it's not just the individual serving, and you talked about that with the father. The family serve too. And we used to have a saying in the Marine Corps. I mean, that's where I first heard it. If you think it's tough being a Marine, try being a Marine's wife. But I think that can go for any number of family members.
Yes,
And it's I love what you do with your foundation because it does recognize the family's service. When we're out there, I know when you were on Iwo Jima, you were under control. You knew what was going on, but your family back home, they had no idea.
That's right.
And that's got to be 10 times worse than being right there in the middle of it. So the fact that you've done this, I think is just another tip of the cap to you for all the things you've done for this country. And on behalf
Todd,
of,
Todd,
thank you.
I don't take the credit for it at all. It was an idea that I think was timely. I think it was time for it to happen. Whether I did it or somebody else did it, I think it was its time because today we're communities, people in 46 states have now erected a Gold Star Family Memorial Monument to honor the families of those who lost a loved one. And that shows to me that in the hearts of America, there are great people who
Yes.
realize exactly the sacrifices that are being made, but we don't talk much about it. And Gold Star families are coming together for the very first time, learning who each other are and sharing their grief together. And I think that's a wonderful thing. They live in the same community, didn't even know who they were. And so now we're in 46 states. We've got about 68 other communities in the process of doing something. And we've already got 60 memorial monuments erected and dedicated, and many more to come. Our little
So,
state of Virginia, I'm exceedingly proud of it because we've got 6 communities in this little state that have already elected a memorial. We've got 6 more in the process. And uh, where our next goal, if we could set a goal and achieve it, we'd like to see every state put a Gold Star Family Memorial Monument on their capital grounds to represent every family in that state that lost and will lose a loved one for all of us. We have 4 so far: Arkansas, Louisiana, Kentucky, and West Virginia. Texas, you got to get with it.
I had a feeling you were going there, Woody. But just as important, we've got 4 states left to put up a monument, and I know that that is one of the things that's been very important to you as a part of your legacy, is to say, by the time you leave us, you want all 50 states to have a monument. And
Not for
so
me, not for me, Todd, for them.
I understand. I understand. And that's what makes you a great American. But I'm also going to endorse you in that regard. I would love to see it, just like you're saying it. 4 more states to go. So anybody who's watching, we're going to challenge you. The website is hwwmohf.org. And if that's not enough to remember, all you got to do is type in Hershel Woody Williams, and this will come up. So, Woody, you've been very gracious with your time. We've spent almost an hour together, which is more than I typically take from our guests. I want to ask you actually 2 final questions. Number one is this: we use a kind of a rallying cry, if you will, a battle cry. That this is kind of new, which is "Be the flag." And it's obvious what it, when we talk about "Be the flag," you're a great representation. But how would you tell somebody who's not served the country, who's not served the community, how do you explain it to them? What does it mean to be the flag?
Well, I think we have lost a lot of our reverence and respect for our flag over the years. I was taught certainly that it was such a precious thing, and that it should never be disrespected in any way by anybody. And somehow we've got to restore that because our flag is the most known flag in the world. There is no other country that has as many flags in many countries that people know about. And somehow, and I think it has to start in our schools. I don't know of any other way of getting it done. We must restore that respect and honor to the flag under which so many of our loved ones have given their life.
That's I could not agree with you more. It does have to start in the schools, and by proxy, that means start at home as well. And we've all got that responsibility. So thank you for that answer. The second thing that I wanted to ask you about is if you look over my right shoulder, there's a uniform back there. Every year, we challenge people to name the person that they are carrying, because the very name of carry the load implies that someone else carried our load at one point, and that someone made the ultimate sacrifice so that we may all live in peace.
Yeah.
That uniform over my right shoulder saw action in the European theater at the exact time that you saw action in the Pacific theater. That is my mother-in-law's father's uniform, and this year I am carrying Sergeant Worley, who served with the 70th Infantry Division and the 3rd Infantry Division in the European theater. Actually, you mentioned Patton earlier. His unit actually covered Patton's right flank, while Patton went north to unlock the siege at Bastogne. So that's who I am carrying this year. I would like to know, Woody, who are you carrying?
I would carry a fellow Marine by the name of Vernon Waters. Vernon Waters and I were exceedingly close. I have said many times, had the circumstances been such that either of our lives were actually in danger, the other one would have sacrificed his for the other person. He is from a little town called Floyd, Montana, and he was a gentle giant, one of the best friends I've ever had, and we lost him on Iwo Jima.
Well, we appreciate the fact that he gave his life for all of us so that we may be free. We appreciate you sharing that with us. Um, Woody Williams, God bless you. You're a great American, and it's examples like you that keep us all going and make this country great.
I
So
am, I am blessed every day.
every day. Well, thanks, Maureen. We appreciate your time today. Again, very, very humbled to have you as a part of Lessons from the Front. Very humbled to have your foundation as a partner of Carry the Load. Again, I can't thank you enough. And if there's ever anything we can do from Texas, and I know the first one, by the way, you made that very clear.
Okay.
If there's ever anything else we can do from Texas, you please call on us because we will be here for you.
Well, let me bid you goodbye by saying this. Today we say "Hoorah," but in my day
Hoorah!
we said
Oh, you cut out. You cut out. That means today trumps yesterday. What happened? I'm gonna have to go research this one, folks. I don't know what Mr. Williams was talking about there. There you are. Okay, you came back. What did you say in your day?
"Gung Ho."
Gung ho. Yes. Okay. Yes, I do know that one.
It has a meaning. It means together. And we,
Together.
as a
Absolutely.
people, must again become the United States of America.
Absolutely. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America, sir. You are an unbelievable example to us all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for your time, and for all of you watching. Um, I hope you have an opportunity to share this with others. Please let them know about this, because we are sitting with history right here. Join us on Sunday, Mother's Day, as we talk to Debbie Lee, mother of Mark Lee, former Navy SEAL, who put his life on the line and gave his life so that we may all be free and live in peace. Woody, thanks again. It's been awesome. Have yourself a wonderful day. And for all of you out there, I ask you this question: who are you carrying?